39715.
Hello all, and welcome once again to this week's episode of Bigfoot for Breakfast, home of the mysterious and the macabre, where we sit in the parlor every week challenging conventional thought.
It's a studio.
It's a parlor.
It's a studio.
It's all of those things. We are your hosts, Sarah Jones.
And Samantha Carter.
You say that so peppy.
That's because I'm cool.
You're really happy to be you.
I'm soups peppy.
Soups?
Soups.
Like super?
Yeah.
Is that like totes, but it's soups now?
Yeah. Totes my goats, don't make me get into it again.
Lord have mercy. We want to go ahead and start this week's episode off with an apology to you guys. Our consistency hasn't been the greatest, and here lately it has become slightly worse. We want you guys to know that we are very aware of this, and we started the show last October. Since then, we have learned a great deal about time management.
Yeah, we are not good at it.
Yep, we're working on it. We are working on it. We plan to start our next season a little differently and bring you guys very consistent and quality episodes. Just bear with us because it's been an unexpectedly busy summer and we've had a little bit of trouble keeping up. It doesn't mean that the show isn't a priority. We just need to manage things better and we know it. We do thank everyone for being patient with us as we've received very little backlash for this and we really do appreciate you guys sticking with us. For those who are new to the show, please don't forget to press the subscribe button on whichever podcast platform you listen from and leave us a rating and a review. We always love hearing from you guys, what you love about the show, what you think we could change. If you wish to contact us for any reason, we love that too. And you can reach us at bigfootforbreakfast@outlook.com, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or you could even call us and leave us a voicemail and we'll play it on our next episode. Now that all that stuff is out of the way, let's get down to the task at hand, what we are all here for, a good story.
I do have to say though, for as popular as this subject seems to be within the world of paranormal lovers, it's incredibly hard to find any actual detailed stories about the place. We could find some history and a ton of articles on the internet, but ultimately, the content of each article really seemed to be the same. They would mention, oh, this supposedly happened, but no detail whatsoever. So we dug and dug for what we have here and did our best to give you a well-rounded analysis of the rumors and legends that exist here.
Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, walks about like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. 1 Peter 5:8.
Douglas County, Kansas is located in the northwest part of Kansas. Situated within the county is a tiny little town. The town first came about in 1857, and when it was first established, it was noted that there was a small creek that winded next to the settlement. It was called Deer Creek, and Deer Creek would become the first name for the little town. 6 families from the area came together to create a community. Mostly English settlers, some Pennsylvania Dutch, and a few families of German descent who were fleeing religious persecution and military duty. For a long time, it remained just a tiny little settlement like this, and then in 1899, a post office was established there.
Ooh.
Ah.
It seems legit once there's a post office.
Right? You gotta have a post office and a cemetery and a jail. Those are just the things that you need.
Right.
The very first postmaster here was named Sylvester Stull, and the name of the town was soon changed as it was named for him. The town came to be known as Stull, Kansas.
Pretty soon, the unincorporated little town began to grow a little more as a grocery store opened, then a doctor's office, a blacksmith shop, sorghum and flour mills, a cider press, and a couple of schools. No jails, Sam.
Darn it.
Not that I know of. It didn't say a jail. One of the first things to be constructed in the little town, though, was a church. Before the Evangelical Emmanuel Church was built, the townspeople had been assembling in each other's homes, and sometimes they used the local school to gather as well. The church that they built was simple. It sat alone on the edge of town on land donated by a local man named Jacob Hildenbrand, one of the first settlers. The people built their church with limestone from the area, and it became a religious home of sorts. It had 2 wood-burning stoves in it that were lit each morning by George Houck, early before the church folk arrived for worship.
One thing that I read that I thought was really sweet was that they always left the doors unlocked at night in case a traveler needed a place to rest for a while. And apparently, it was used for this somewhat often. I'm sure that churches still do this here and there, but I'm not sure in the world of today. Unfortunately, the church and the surrounding cemetery have really developed kind of a reputation, and while some of the town people will speak out stating that all of the claims to the evil surrounding the area are completely false, Others swear it to be true.
So it seems to have started with a couple of different events that are supposed to have occurred within the cemetery. In the 1850s, only a few short years after the establishment of the town, supposedly a stable boy brutally murdered the unofficial mayor of Stull in the cemetery by stabbing him to death. Now, I heard both ways. I heard that he was murdered in the cemetery. I also heard that he was murdered in a barn on the cemetery grounds. So I'm not sure which is which. That's literally all the information that I could find on this incident. Every source that I could find just simply stated that it happened. No names, nothing regarding the circumstances, nothing else. But according to lore, if a murder happens within the confines of a cemetery, it opens up some sort of a doorway or gives permission of sorts for demons to access the inhabitants there, which is really interesting. I never heard that.
That is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I've heard a lot specifically about this location, but once I was trying to go back and think about it, I really haven't heard many very specific stories.
No.
It's, well, the devil comes through a gate or whatever, but
every article you read is super basic.
My most detailed informational encounter with learning about Stull Cemetery or seeing anything specific about it was watching Supernatural. So in 1922, it seemed that the people of Stull decided that they needed a bigger church.
You're going to need a bigger boat. Speaking of churches, Jaws.
Yeah, speaking of churches. Hey, you know what? Shark Week's coming up real quick. I love Shark Week.
Shark Week is the bomb. Even though Shark Week is somewhat like Stull Cemetery and it's the same damn stories every single year. I'm getting really sick of that. You notice that? Same documentaries, same great white shark attacks.
Someone new needs to go out,
Yeah.
Take one for the team. We need some new Shark Week adventures.
We do. I'm getting tired of the same old, same old.
It was a few years ago when Casey, shout out Casey Garrison, wink wink.
Wink, wink.
We went to San Diego and we went out kayaking in La Jolla and there were sharks just swimming everywhere under our kayaks and everything. And then we were swimming on the beach and there's just sharks going through the surf and they've got like people on the beach and they're 4-year-olds swimming in the water and they're like, oh, they're non-aggressive sharks. I don't, a shark's a shark, right?
Yeah, I noped out of the water one time due to a lemon shark.
I noped out of the water when a big giant wave hit me and my bikini top fell off.
I'll do it.
I was standing there on this big public beach full of families and my boobs were out and this fantastic lady came over and I didn't even realize it and she was just hugging me and I'm like, what's up? And she's like, I just thought I'd help you and cover you up until you could get your top tied back on. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the nicest person I've ever met, which was weird because everyone was mean to us in California, except for we were asking for directions and the one person that we could actually get to stop and talk to us to give us directions, they're like, oh, well, where are you from? And we're like, well, we're from Iowa. And he's like, oh my goodness, me too.
No wonder.
Midwest nice.
Seriously.
Anyway,
we need to get back on track.
Sharks.
This whole thing has nothing to do with sharks. Okay, back
sharks and Jason.
Back to the church. There are no sharks in this church, just FYI. Don't get excited.
It's not even near the ocean.
No, it's in Kansas.
So anyway, the new church, after they built it, the bigger one, stood near the old one, which was largely abandoned. It's said from there that secret use of the church was then taken up by people with darker intentions.
Dun, dun, dun.
People involved in devil worship and witchcraft, supposedly. There's nothing dark about the craft. There's no devil in the craft.
I think it's more the devil worship that got them upset. Well, no, they didn't like any kind of weird witchcrafty sorcery back in these days. Like, you couldn't stray.
They burned you.
You couldn't stray from the mainstream. You were getting thrown off a cliff, and there aren't any oceany cliffs in Kansas, so burning. But in this case, I think they hung people.
Yeah.
They just strung them up.
So anyway, it's said that these people at one time actually did summon the devil intentionally as part of a ritual that they were performing against a local townsman that was disliked.
We do not condone any ritualistic summoning of the devil at Bigfoot for Breakfast, by the way.
Don't we? Though, don't we?
Not outrightly.
Okay, that's fair.
Although I could find no official record of this, it has been said that the witches in the small village were found out and they were hung from a tree in the cemetery, a big pine tree. It's a large deciduous tree that stands within the walls of the cemetery. People describe the tree as gnarly and creepy. So, like we said, there doesn't seem to be any official record of these events actually taking place, but it sounds like the arrest and hanging of the witches was much less than lawful. From what we have read, keep in mind that these are the writings of people who were not present. They were just going by the stories that they have heard themselves. From what we have read, this was less of a court system type judgment, as there seems to have been no trials here. Kind of like they had in Salem. You know, they had the witch trials and they had judgments, so there would have been more documentation of that. That wasn't the case in Stull. But much like everything else said of the area, we have no idea whether or not any of it is true. We simply find the stories interesting because they have gone on for so long, where typically, if there's no truth to it, stories like this tend to die off. So why hasn't this died?
Why won't you die?
Yeah.
If you don't like it, go somewhere else. No, don't. I'll stop. I promise. So, in the eyes of Bigfoot for breakfast, the witches thing isn't all that weird.
It's not that weird.
If we think it's weird, it's probably an issue. Like, if it's a thing and we say that's weird, then you're probably in trouble.
Because we're out there ourselves.
And we've come to accept this.
And we accept others with their strange oddities. We even appreciate them.
Bring it on down.
Right. Who wants some normal folks around anyway?
So there was a lot of that witchy stuff throughout history, and it seems to be the beginning of many a haunted story. So it seems to be rush hour here in rural southern Iowa.
It's not being rural nice right now. We're recording. Do you think if we put a sign outside, they'll drive quieter?
Please drive quietly. No, I think the semis will all honk.
I know the semi drivers that drive by here, and they'll be like, brrr, the whole way by.
Jake brake!
For real. Assholes.
Yeah.
And they're too cool to listen to this podcast, so they have no idea that we're talking shit.
It seems to be the beginning of many a haunted horror story. So it's not that super outlandish, and it's nothing we haven't heard before. But there's more. But wait, there's more. Sham wow.
Sham woohoo.
That was my favorite. Sham woohoo.
Anyway.
One version of the legend that we had the pleasure of reading is that while these witches were summoning the devil within this church for whatever reason they had in mind, he actually showed up.
He just came along.
They invited him and, he accepted that invitation and here we are, dancing with the devil in a church.
Probably not the cocktail hour he had in mind. Well, maybe it was.
It might have been. So, while the devil was there, he found one of the ladies to be quite beautiful, and he fell in love with her. So, then it goes on. The two of them had a baby. The baby was born, and apparently the child, being obviously not of this world, was kept in the church basement. So technically, would that have been a Nephilim?
No.
The devil was an angel.
But he wasn't anymore. I say no.
Okay.
I say no.
We're not here to debate religious theory, I suppose.
Yep, no experts in this room.
So we read that this poor child was severely deformed and did not like people. Same, bro. Same. Once the townfolk found out about all of the black magic being done in the old church, they rounded up the suspected women and hung them, along with the child's mother who held the devil's admiration. Something tells me this is a real bad move, bro.
Mm-hmm.
We don't hang the devil's mistress. The child was discovered and was also killed. Oh, we also don't kill the devil's babies. The church was buried beneath the tree.
The child was, not the church.
Oh, like they buried the church? Burn it. Burn it. The child was buried beneath the tree from which his mother was hung.
Okay, so there was that version. And then a couple of other places I also read that the devil and this woman had a baby, but that the baby actually only lived for a couple of days. So
this lady had a unhealthy baby, and because it was unhealthy and possibly deformed, they called it the devil's baby.
Probably.
If you're looking at it from a non-supernatural standpoint,
and things like this did go on. They probably already suspected witchcraft was going on, and then this poor woman had a child that was not healthy, maybe had some chromosomal thing going on, and then they probably were just like, well, that's the answer. But there's no record of this happening either, officially. It sounds like this tree was still standing in the cemetery for a very long time, and that it was only removed in 1998 in order to deter unwanted visitors and vandals. I actually read that they took this tree down the night before Halloween in 1998 because they had a feeling lots of people were about to flock into the area, so they just got rid of some of these attractions. History be damned.
Obviously, we found no official record of this. This is just hearsay. And one of the more popular versions of the story regarding why the devil would choose a little place like Stull, Kansas to show up twice a year. Supposedly, he's coming by to visit the woman that he loved and his long-dead child, who apparently didn't go to hell after their deaths, or he would have no reason to do such a thing. So,
right?
Here's my question.
Mm-hmm.
If they didn't go to hell, were they really doing what they were accused of doing?
Yeah.
Of course, the child would be innocent either way.
You would think so. The people talk about the fact that there are a couple of cedar trees located on the grounds, but that there were originally 5 cedar trees that were intentionally planted in the shape of an inverted pentagram. First of all, wouldn't that be
cedar trees? Like, why is it always cedar trees?
Okay, we'll talk about that in a second. So the inverted pentagram, if they were planted in the form of an inverted pentagram, wouldn't it be just how you're looking at it?
True.
If I'm on this side, it's inverted. If I'm on this side, it is not inverted. I don't know. But people could go either way with that. I have no proof that these trees even existed. I also read that this is stated in the book Haunted Cemeteries, Ghosts in Graveyards by Daniel Hardy. Here, he also states that the cedar tree is a type of tree that is believed to have unnatural powers. While we aren't going to say this is untrue, I had a hard time finding any information to elaborate on what kind of unnatural powers that a cedar tree is said to have. So I can't elaborate on that. Samantha, I don't know if you can.
I got nothing.
Okay. So if there are any listeners of ours out there who do practice some witchcraft of any kind and are able to let us in on what cool things you can do regarding cedar trees or parts of a cedar tree, let us know because we're actually interested in this information.
So what I find is that there's actually a lot of association with cedar wood. Druids associated the cedar tree with the tree of life, and Norse people referred to the tree of life as grandmother cedar. Cedar is considered sacred to the feast of Imbolc, also referred to as the feast of Shava.
Ooh.
So there is a lot of, especially with the magical properties, cedar wands can cleanse negative atmospheres. Cedar wood is used for the creation of sacred spaces. It's actually often used to summon helpful spirits during invocations and rituals.
So this would have been handy because they were summoning a helpful spirit in their eyes.
So you can hang cedar above your entry door to drive away negative influences and evil spirits. And the Cherokee believed that the cedar tree held powerful ancestral spirits.
Wow. I didn't know any of these things.
Yeah.
So there is tons of cedar around here. Why are we not harvesting this for good?
So, as far as the church itself goes, it sounds like the legend will have you believe that there was so much black magic, evil, heartbreak, and influence from the devil himself that took place within the walls of the structure, that it's basically ingrained in the church itself and the area surrounding it. So it's no longer like a holy sanctum. It's an evil place, like a murder house.
It's taken a dark turn from what it once was.
Mm-hmm.
In the early 1900s, a farmer was burning off his field nearby the church. This is common practice among farmers still today. Many of them burn off their fields after harvest in order to return some of the nutrients back to the soil.
So what they should be doing is throwing some cedar chips out there before they burn the field.
That would be ideal.
Yeah.
So this man was burning his field, and when he finished, he returned home. Upon returning home, he realized that his young son was not there. After the family hadn't seen him for an unusual amount of time, the field that had just been burned was now being searched. It wasn't long before they came across the charred remains of the boy that they were looking for. Apparently, for some reason or another, the boy had gone into the field while it was burning, or had possibly already been in the field and he had gotten boxed in by fire and he burned to death. I cannot even imagine the heartbreak that this father had experienced.
So are they associating this with the negativity of the church then? Or...
Yeah, well, there's so much controversy here because it wasn't in the cemetery that this happened. It was just kind of
near it,
close to it. So there were a couple of different deaths like this that they said kind of contributed to the evil that was going on there.
Okay. So like just building the negative energy per se.
Is what it sounds like,
okay.
Yeah. And then other people are like, no, it has nothing to do with that. It was just an accident and it happened to be there, which I mean, could be too. So.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's just one of the stories that go along with the church, and it was told in various different sources, so I threw it in too.
Also in the early 1900s, a really well-known and well-liked man from the area just went missing. When he was missed, a bunch of people went out looking for him, and they found him hanging from a tree just off of a road called Devil's Road that ran near the cemetery.
So this one, it doesn't sound like they ever really figured out what happened, but while some people said it was a suicide, there were a lot of other people that knew the guy really well, and they kind of just said, well, he would never do that. He was super well liked, really well involved, but we don't know what's going on inside of other people, and we have no really judgment to throw in here.
It's really easy to say he was possessed by Satan.
Exactly. And that's kind of where they were going. It was an evil spirit that led him to do this. So there's that story. It's speculated by some people that the stories surrounding the area had never even come about. until a professor at the University of Kansas named Jane Penner wrote an article in the University Daily Kansan called Legend of Devil Haunts Tiny Town. In this paper, she wrote that the devil appeared twice a year. She included testimony from her students that they had gone to the cemetery themselves and had their own experiences there. Supposedly, this article is what triggered this huge urban legend to develop, and then made up stories kind of snowballed from there. I also heard from one source, I'm not sure how true this was, that she was actually teaching a class on urban legends, and she wrote this article to kind of prove a point that it only takes one thing for things to snowball out of control. So she kind of did it on purpose, is what I understand. I don't know how true that is either.
It's speculated that this article is really what got everything going, because on March 20th of 1978, a whole bunch of college students and their friends, about 200 of them, decided to hit up Stull Cemetery on the night of the spring equinox and have a big ol' party. Long story short, the devil did not show up to party with these people, but what did happen was a huge friggin' mess.
On October 31st, 1989, it happened again. This time it sounds like the number of people who showed up at the cemetery was around 500 people coming in to see the devil, who again never appeared, but they didn't clean up after themselves. So basically, it's just a big old party scene here and there, but they come in and they leave a whole bunch of trash, destroy the area, knock over tombstones. They're super disrespectful, and it's just, I can see why the local people would not like this. But we get into more of that later.
This town and area, keep in mind, is not large. I don't even think that the town of Stull is big enough for its own police department. It sounds like patrol is handled mostly by the county sheriff's office. So imagine, and I can imagine, being a small law enforcement agency and having over 500 people randomly show up to a party in one of your local cemeteries. It would be hard to handle and control, and likely be pretty overwhelming.
I read on the Can of Mystery website that at one point, a paranormal investigation group had visited the area, and while they had very little actual experience during their investigation, they did experience some crazy things afterward. Basically, they felt like messing around in the area gave them some bad juju. After their visit, they experienced a slew of bad things in their lives. One of the investigators, named Kathy from Tennessee, said that the group disbanded. Some of them experienced divorces, tragic illnesses, and deaths following the visit. She's quoted on this same website to have said, quote, "The long list of current and past tragedies read like a laundry list of the devil's dirty work." End quote.
A lot of people report some of the same strange goings on within the cemetery when they visit at night. People talk about hearing strange banging noises, hearing the tick of clocks, indoor rainstorms within the walls of the church, a child ghost. Ooh, I wonder if it's the kid.
They say it is. And actually, there was a couple of people who got pictures that they'd kind of just taken off into the woods around the cemetery. And you can see kind of the outline, maybe, of a child behind the trees kind of peeking out in a few of these pictures. And that's what's speculated to be the child ghost. Another picture, which I never saw, they just talked about this picture. I never actually saw a picture of it, was that of a small child werewolf. And they think that is probably the Satan's child.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So they've also claimed experiences of time shift, memory loss, and disorientation, along with horrible smells, being touched by spirits, heaviness of the air, thick fog, and the apparition of a white-haired woman who shouts out at nighttime visitors, yelling things like, "Get out of here," or "Get off my bones." We were unable to find any of these accounts directly, but mostly only recounted accounts of these accounts. So we aren't sure how reliable that is.
That's where we're at. Other accounts seem to report being followed around by a truck or by locals in the area in a very creepy way during and even long after these visits and after returning home. This post was on Reddit, and the entire thread seems to be speculating that these are Satanists from the area that are still practicing Satanism. Once again, no proof, just speculation.
These stories seem to be unending. The cemetery has developed nicknames such as Cemetery of the Damned, Satan's Burial Ground, and the Devil's Playground. The devil himself is said to walk the cemetery twice a year, once on All Hallows Eve and again on the spring equinox. There is said to be a stairway somewhere on the premises that leads down into the ground. The location of said mysterious stairway seems to be unknown. Some claim it to be within the church walls, others say it's behind the church, and still others argue it to be hidden within the pentagram-forming cedar trees that we mentioned earlier in the episode. The stairs stairs are said to lead a person supernaturally and direct into the pits of hell itself. There are a few reasons why the stairs seem to be hard to locate. Some say that they have found them and that they were difficult to locate simply because they had been overgrown with weeds. Others say that they were hidden on purpose, and that is very well concealed. Others state that the stairs are not obvious to people who seek them out because they are simply not there, that they will only appear when they are being used by the devil to come up from his fiery home into the dimension of the living for those 2 times each year.
So like we said earlier, if they were there, and while we wouldn't be super quick to go bounding down a set of stairs into the ground leading straight to hell, and while we would never encourage such a thing, we realize that there are people who are not big on advice, and we respect those who are compelled to adventure.
I am people.
Right, Sam his people. So the only thing that we ask is that if you survive, you leave a voicemail at 641-812-2635 telling us exactly what you saw down there so that we can do another episode letting the listeners know.
Also, call before you go.
Yeah.
So then if you never call back, we know to come find you.
We will try.
I will come for you.
We will. We will dig around.
I'll bring Sam and Dean.
Jensen.
I'll call Jensen and Jared.
Okay, so it would provide us much closure. Eat your Wheaties first. Keep your Indiana Jones skills in check that day. May the odds ever be in your favor.
Either way, they sound like something that you might want to steer clear of.
I feel like I would start to walk down those suckers and then I would be about halfway down the stairs and the top would close up at the ground and that would be the end of it. I'm not super confident that I could Indiana Jones my way away from the devil and back to earth. I also don't want to be in hell. There's that.
I feel like I have extensively studied
Jiu-jitsu?
No.
Taekwondo?
No, the Winchesters. So I think that maybe I could manage.
If you bring salt, you can get away from almost anything.
Right?
Some brick dust.
Gotta have some, is it goofer dust?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're in the perfect place to collect cemetery dirt.
We can probably work it out. You go down, I'll stay at the top, and we'll have like a string.
Yeah.
A rope.
With a can on the end of it so we can communicate in case I don't have self-service in hell.
Right? And then we'll put one of those things you throw off a boat, like a rescuer that goes around your waist.
A lifesaver.
Yeah.
And also I'll pack snacks.
Just in case it takes a long time. It's fine. I have corn nuts.
Corn nuts. You know, I haven't eaten corn nuts forever.
I haven't either.
I used to love corn nuts.
I know. I remember you eating the shit out of some corn nuts when we were kids.
Nacho cheese.
I like those jalapeno.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know what else I like?
What?
Hot fries.
I'm all about combos. Have you ever had combos?
Yeah.
Like the 7-layer dip combos?
I like the pretzel cheese ones and then the pizza flavored ones. I'm partial to that pizza flavor.
So now we know which snacks we'll take to Stull in
To
case
hell.
we get stuck in the hell stairs.
Yeah.
Okay.
Papa, can you hear me?
Johnny. All right.
We searched and searched the interwebs
And searched some more.
for what seemed to be a somewhat credible witness to the staircase, and the only thing we found were a couple of people in the comment section of an article on Lawrence.com who acknowledged that they did exist and that they had seen them. I seen it! One
With
comment.
my own eyes.
One comment was from a poster with the username, "What do you think?"
Mm-hmm.
That's his name. What do you think? And it reads, quote, "I have personally seen the stairs. There are about 2 or 3 steps. It feels like there should be more steps than that."
Hell would be farther away.
Well, I guess it could be, there's a portal. There's some magic involved. I don't know.
Or there used to be a basement and it has now been filled in with dirt.
What the hell do you think you're doing? Bringing that kind of logic into this discussion. Anyway, quote, "I believe it was when you entered through the door to the back towards the left-hand side." I'm assuming that's the church door.
Yeah, that's the church door.
"They did not lead anywhere, just those few steps and then dirt." End that quote. The other comment is posted by username X1222 and it reads, quote, "The guy above me has some truth. There are stairs," referring to the previous commenter.
Indeed.
"They are at the back of the church on the left side, but they only appear on spring equinox and Halloween. The church was torn down in 2002, so you cannot go visit it and see the gateway to hell, to my knowledge. Yes, the stairs appear." End quote.
The first poster that we spoke of also mentioned in his comment that while they were there, a group of about 4 or 5 girls showed up at the church while they were present, and they were drinking herbal tea.
Good call, girls.
I mean, what else would you drink at the devil's site? Something herbal anyway. He states that these girls meet up in different locations to drink this tea. The girls took them to a tree with a pentagram on it, and they wrote their names in blood on the wooden entrance of the door.
As one would.
I mean, it's only logical. They wrote that it felt like they were in the cemetery for only about 30 to 45 minutes. But when they returned home, it had actually been about 3 to 4 hours.
Let's do the time warp again. Let's do the time warp again. The second poster also went into more detail about their experience there. He agreed with the other poster's time difference, stating, mere minutes will in reality be hours. He goes on to stake some more elaborate claims that he is unsure are true, but it is a story told by his English teacher every Halloween, and that's where he heard them. They read, down the first flight of stairs, you will find a cement room. You can't find that now because there's no more church. It is in the cement room that you will find one green bottle in the center of the room standing there. Someone left their 7-Up litter.
Sons of bitches.
You can pick it up and throw it against the wall, and it will not break. And not only will it not break, the bottle will roll back to the center of the room and stand back up just the way you found it.
I wonder what would happen if you took the bottle out of the room. I'm a scientist.
Boomerang! There's a second flight of stairs, and once you go down them, you will be at the beginning of a long hallway. At the end of this hallway is a door, which is supposed to be the actual gateway to hell. The edges of the door are illuminated.
If that don't draw you in.
How could you not open it?
Like a mosquito to a zapper box.
That's not what I was going to say about drawing in a skeeter. There's a song about it.
There's a skeeter on my... I'm joking. I'm not going to go.
Knock it off.
Knock it off.
At this point, a person's curiosity is at its peak, and of course, that person's going to want to go to that door and open it, and that's easier said than done, because actually, it's never been done. The hallway is basically a treadmill type of area. You start to walk down the hallway, but you can't get anywhere. Run, skip, jump, crawl, walk, jog, etc. You will walk down the hallway, but you can't get anywhere. You will not be able to gain any ground. Some type of force is holding you back, it's the bottle, from getting to the gateway to hell.
Don't go that way.
But if there really was one there, and you believed it, would you actually go to that door and open it? Hell yes, I would.
I think I would. I'd be like, I didn't come this far. Not to open the illuminated doorway.
Right? Once you've tried to break the bottle and ran into the treadmill hallway, you might as well head back, seeing as you are getting nowhere with these two forms of entertainment. Not true.
We'll say where we're getting with our entertainment.
I'll be the judge of that. I can stay entertained for hours accomplishing nothing.
It's true, she can. I've seen it.
I don't consider watching marathons of Criminal Minds with your cats as accomplishing nothing. I feel like it's very educational, forensically.
You know how many times I walked into your house and you had all the curtains drawn and there was nothing but Spencer Reed on TV and Dulce in your lap and you're in your underoos?
Well, why would you wear pants at home?
That's another argument we have.
Does that? I barely wear pants at your home.
I know.
Like, I'm coming to my sister's house, taking off my pants. No, that's not true.
I guarantee you before you leave, you're like, how likely am I to get pulled over from here to there at this time of day? Can I wear pants or can I not wear pants?
It depends on how much tequila is involved.
I know.
Sometimes I don't care at all. And besides, who's going to pull me over?
Well, they'll leave once they see you have no pants. I'll be like, never mind, ma'am.
I'm just going to go.
Especially our local cops that know you. They'll be like, Sam, really? Go home.
Again? Come on.
This is like the 5th time this week. Put on your goddamn shorts.
We still don't know if that gateway actually exists and the church is torn down. It's most likely that it probably doesn't, and most likely that it probably never did. This is a story, like we said, from the English teacher that is shared every year on Halloween. The user said that so far it's the best story that they've come upon, and they don't necessarily believe it, but hey, it's good entertainment.
Yet another user posted, quote, about the stairway. We had never heard the rumors and we didn't look at much of the stonework around there, but I do believe that one night we did see what looked like the beginning of a set of stairs alone in the grass. Although we didn't get within 20 feet of it, we thought that it was just the remnants of another building. End quote.
Am I the only weird person that if I see a staircase,
ooh, portal to hell?
No, I've got to go on it though.
Have you ever seen those? I don't know whether they're real or if it's just a creepypasta, but have you read the weird stories of staircases in the woods?
Yes.
I know. I thought it was true too. And then someone told me the other day that none of that's true. It's just something that was made up on the interwebs and my heart was kind of broken.
Probably just the remnants of old freaking deer stands or something.
They're elaborate staircases. Nobody builds deer stands with like beautiful staircases. And they're nowhere where there would have been a home. It's so confusing. Yeah, I don't know. People have weird experiences on them too. I don't know what they are.
I need to seek them out.
I want to find one.
Road trip. You know what's great on a road trip?
What?
Listening to Bigfoot for breakfast.
Yes, it is. It's really, we can take you far with entertainment.
We love road trips.
In miles and quality.
Take us along. We're great company. Tell your friends.
Tell your grandma.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal, providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.
So here's my take on the whole staircase situation. Even if there was a staircase actually present on the grounds of the cemetery, and even if it did lead down into dirt, I can't say that I am entirely convinced that this is evidence of a portal to hell. Because, in my mind, if there is a hell, it's not literally and physically under the ground beneath our feet. Science tells us that. We know what the earth is made of, and we know what's down there for the most part, and digging a hole in the earth, even a pretty deep one, will not likely take a person into the realm of hell.
That's bullshit.
It would be another dimension or plane type of thing, right? So why do we or the devil need a physical set of stairs to travel back and forth? It does not seem reasonable, but I'm no expert. Sam, weigh in here.
I don't believe in science.
I mean,
science is a construct of the devil to get you to question the existence of heaven and God.
Okay, I believe in some weird things, but I also believe that inside the earth is flaming hot magma and not the devil.
Where inside the earth is flat and birds are robots.
No, they're drones.
Whatever.
For the government.
And they recharge on electrical wire.
If you need proof, go to the Facebook site Birds Aren't Real. It's great.
You can buy a t-shirt.
You can. I thought about it.
Me too. Maybe we could swap shirts.
Maybe
shirt
we
swap.
Could trade. Yeah, shirt swap. Fresh pots.
Fresh pots. Shirt swap.
Anyway.
It's apparently pretty much impossible these days to even obtain permission to investigate the premises overnight. Unless you're famous like us. Some people say that this is because of all the damage and all the problems that were caused when they seem to allow people to freely do so. Others contend that no one is allowed to investigate because it's an occult conspiracy. I'm not really sure what some people are specifically implying when they say that it's an occult conspiracy, but it sounds pretty negative.
It has a bad connotation.
I just say leave the conspiracy people alone.
Yep, let them have it.
Let us have it. The rumor seems to have started back in the 90s when a legitimate news station showed up in the town on Halloween asking for permission to hang out in the cemetery that night. What do you consider legitimate news?
Yeah.
What are we considering a legitimate news station?
How your mouth moves just like Donald Trump's when you say that.
Well, how can you not say news like that? Anyway, they explained that they were actually there to debunk the entire thing, which seemed to be what a lot of people in the town wanted. They wanted to be there at midnight so they could actually prove via video footage that the devil did not, in fact, show up and try to help put these stories to rest. No, they were trying to put the stories to rest, not that the devil. I don't feel like I clarified that very well.
The news source was.
The news. It sounds like they were allowed into the cemetery, only to be strangely turned away and sent home approximately a half an hour before midnight. Why? It does seem weird, and it does open the door for more questions, and does open them up to look a little shady. But it's their business, and like we've said about everything else, we have no proof that this situation ever actually took place. Maybe they didn't want the publicity to go away.
See, some people speculate that they kind of like it, and then some people, I don't think that's true. Otherwise, I think they would be like every other haunted location and have signs posted and a website.
Make money,
yeah,
make money.
Charge some admission.
Right.
But I think, honestly, I read a lot of interviews from locals, and it seems like they're just getting really pissed off because their family's buried there, and people are knocking over all the headstones, and they're super rude. So that's where they're at.
Can I throw out a fun fact that I've already brought up?
Yeah, we have a few.
In case you haven't noted by my previous conversational comments, this cemetery was actually featured in an episode of the CW's show Supernatural. The area was the setting used for the brothers' final showdown Well, it was the final showdown of that season. They showed down with the devil plenty more seasons after that. But supposedly, because we wouldn't know, because we don't watch Supernatural with our cats.
Fun fact number 2.
I also don't carry a backpack with Sam and Dean and Cassiel's faces all over it to work, where my coworkers mock me relentlessly for it. That doesn't happen.
Fun fact number 2. At one time, The Cure, and if you don't know who The Cure is, you do. Everybody knows who The Cure is. The Cure was scheduled to play in Kansas City, and they refused to do so due to the close proximity of the old cemetery.
The Cure. I'm disappointed in you, The Cure.
I still love them.
Flock of seagulls?
They are nothing like Flock of Seagulls.
I'm just kidding.
Samantha, they're going to be so pissed at us.
Flock of seagulls would have played that date.
They probably would have.
Are you from Depeche Mode? Fun fact number 3. I read an article in the entertainment section of MSN that stated that Ariana Grande, it's actually Ariana Grande.
I actually have no idea how to pronounce her name.
It's Grande. That Ariana Grande had actually visited Stull Cemetery while she was on tour in town to perform in Kansas City, Kansas. The article states that, quote, there was a smell of sulfur in the car, and in one of her photos were the faces of 3 demons. When she tried to send the image to her manager, it said that it occupied 666 megabytes. Interesting.
Fun fact number 4. Yes. 4 fun facts this time. Allegedly, in the early 90s, Pope John Paul II was on a flight heading to Colorado for a public appearance there. Supposedly, he requested that his flight be redirected so that it did not fly over the unholy area of Stull, Kansas.
Well played, Pope. Well
Just go
played.
around that spot.
We have seen people comment that the town of Stull, Kansas was initially named Skull, Kansas. I don't believe it. To be easily disputed, since the history of the town states that, like we said earlier, the town was named after the original postmaster.
And this is like the only thing there's official record of
Yeah.
out of all these records. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to roll with that one.
Yeah.
Stull. I have seen it mentioned many times throughout our quest for information here that the road leading up to the cemetery was initially named Devil's Road, but that it was later changed to make it seem less ominous and deter thrill seekers.
So what is it named now?
I don't know. I don't even know what it's called now.
There's a sign that says this is not the Devil's Road.
There was it's called not Devil's Road. I don't know what it is. But supposedly there was these maps and you could go get them and
A map, you say?
A map. The map.
A map?
Yeah.
Where a map?
It used to say Skull Road, and then the new maps do not say Skull Road. So I couldn't find the maps, of course, in this whole story. I was trying to look for a damn picture of the map. Nothing.
The map. Other people make mention that it's ironic that the area code for Stull begins with the number 666. Is that real?
You know, is that real?
Is it, though?
She looked really frightened of all the things to be upset about. I wish I had a Snapchat of your face right now.
Is it real, though?
We're going to find out. I'm giving it a Google.
Well, I thought that this was a well-researched podcast episode.
Well, it is, but there was very little to find here, and I forgot to look up that one thing that I easily could prove. Yeah, no, it's 66050. It's not even true. It doesn't even start with 666. Liars.
So people are just literally putting out this fake information on the internet, so stupid people like us might not research it.
Why do you think throughout this entire episode I wrote, but we can't prove that?
But we have big smart brains, and we did prove it.
We don't know. Like, literally nothing in this entire thing that I researched, it was all just hearsay. It was literally all hearsay, and nothing was concrete at all. So what I could do was make a podcast episode full of stories.
But why would you literally just make up a story that could be disproven by opening a phone book? Because phone books aren't common anymore.
But the Google is.
The Google is.
66050 is the zip code for Stull.
Not zip code, area code.
No, zip code. The area code is the beginning of the phone number.
Yeah, I know. That's what they're saying. The area code is 666.
No, they were saying the first 3 numbers of the zip code.
Other people make mention that it is ironic that the area code for Stull begins with the number 666.
Well, I know the area code isn't. And it was zip code that they were talking about. Area code 785.
Oh, I'm confused.
It's really not that confusing. I read one story that was repeated on a few different websites about a couple of guys who went out to the cemetery to have a look around. While they were walking around on the ground, just taking a look, a really strong wind blew up and it must have felt very unusual because the 2 men went running out of the cemetery to their car. But when they got to the spot where their car should be, it wasn't there. Apparently, upon further inspection, they found their car parked on the opposite side of the road facing the other direction.
Did they leave the keys in the car?
They did not specify.
Do we know the names of these gentlemen?
We don't know anything.
We don't know shit.
All we can find is some speculation and some stories that came from other people who heard them from other people.
Lots of stories to talk about. None of them provable. We've got lots of stuff here. So something like this, it's hard to say. I have been guilty many times of thinking that I did something one way when it was proven later that I had in fact done something in the way that I was denying. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
In which case, we recall an incident 10 minutes ago in which Sarah remembered turning off the stove.
I never said I remembered turning off the stove.
But you assumed that it was shut off.
Well, wouldn't you if you walked away from it?
And you walked away from it. And then we came inside to find the house full of smoke.
Lots of smoke. We did not come inside.
No, we didn't. The children came running out screaming.
There's smoke. The whole house. And they were correct.
Save me, Tom Cruise. Help me, Oprah. No, Tom Cruise and Oprah Winfrey, stay away from the children.
Seriously, all of them.
All of you. The only celebrity I will ever allow around my children now is Jason Momoa and John Wick.
Yep.
Keanu. You know what? There are just outrageous claims all over the internet of Keanu Reeves' extremely unnaturally appropriate behavior.
We love that.
Whoa. I would say that either this is what happened, they parked their car the way they found it, and just think that they parked it the other way, or I would even give in to the possibility of locals seeing that someone was in the cemetery and deciding to mess with them. Therein, did they leave the keys in the car?
Yeah, I don't know.
Also, I forget where I park my car all the time.
Oh my God, I go to Walmart and I will go to a completely other side of the parking lot and I'm like, I know my car is right around here, and it is not.
You remember
It's
when
not
we
close.
were at Universal and I swore that we parked in Section E, and it was not.
Right. I mean, it's just the thing that happens in life.
Not the thing.
Lots of stories talk about this strange wind that tends to blow up out of nowhere. One man claimed that there was no wind when he first entered the cemetery, and that while he was there, a wind blew up so strong and constant that it knocked him clear off his feet and that he basically had to crawl his way out of the cemetery, at which point the wind stopped.
Exhibit C, I submit that the weather is unpredictable.
Sudden wind happens.
Sudden wind happens.
I mean, it's not really that unnatural, but whatever.
That sounds like a t-shirt slogan to me.
People are going to be mad at us because we are on board.
Right? We're all about, and you know what? Before the research happened on this, I was on board.
I know, we've talked about visiting Stull, Kansas so many times, but then I read this and I don't want to.
It not even worth the drive.
And they don't want us there.
They don't want us there.
I feel like we're going to get a ticket.
I'll bring my cedar.
You might have to. So anyway, people claim to have experienced this wind inside the walls of the church as well, where there should not be any wind at all. So I don't know about that. Granted, there hasn't been a roof or like one wall on the church, so I guess wind could get in there.
Well, granted, there isn't really any walls of the church anymore, so...
Nope. We're getting to that too.
Oh, further, we have read stories about a cross that used to hang on the wall of the church, and people have claimed to witness it slowly turn upside down into an inverted cross on the wall at the midnight hour.
Here at Bigfoot for Breakfast, we believe in a lot of weird stuff, but we can't just dive into everything with full faith. And sadly, while I would love to be able to tell you that I believe that there is a portal to the netherworld and truly paranormal experience to be had in Stull, Kansas, I just cannot. I hate to be a naysayer, but I have a few reasons for this one. The first is the seemingly total lack of any credible eyewitnesses here. Now, I did find a few stories, but unfortunately, stories that we find on the internet under a vague username without any information about the poster are very entertaining, and we will throw them into the episode, but we cannot actually count them as credible. If we had witnesses who had come forward stating their name, where they're from, what happened, and why they would be a credible person, even somewhat, that would be mildly different.
Another thing. When we do an episode like this, while it's difficult to find official record of paranormal happenings, because those are just not a thing, there is typically enough record to back up the story at least somewhat. And there just isn't any of that here. Like any.
Very, very little.
There seems to be some record of the settlement and that there were Pennsylvania Dutch people who settled there. There is record that a boy was killed when his father burned his field and that a man was found hanging, but we can't even find how closely these things occurred in proximity to the church and the cemetery, or that they were even really associated because, you know, stuff happens.
Yeah. Tragic things do just happen.
And so does wind.
Yep, sudden wind. I mean, we're not meteorologists.
Meteorologists are barely meteorologists.
We're going to get yelled at. We're going to get so many mean emails.
No, I will rephrase that. I was thinking more on the lines of weathermen. There is science behind the skill of meteorology.
The Doppler?
There is a Doppler.
Well, we got a Doppler. I remember when that came about. That was cool. That was really just a random fact. I don't know.
Let's
not really leading anywhere.
take the Doppler with us to Stull and see what it says.
Take it down the stairs.
Because science.
I think it's pretty big, the Doppler.
That's what she said.
I
I think your Doppler's pretty big.
Yeah, big old Doppler.
My vessel is, what was it?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Magnificent. That's a dinghy. I'm quoting Pirates of the Caribbean. Sorry, Johnny Depp, I love you.
As far as the gravestone that is supposedly inscribed with the word Wittich, did I mention that earlier?
No, we have not discussed that.
Okay, we need to.
There is a gravestone.
A lot of people made this big deal because close to this supposed hanging tree, there's a gravestone that has the word Wittich on it. Wittich. So that led people to believe that obviously that was the grave of one of the witches. So while this word appears to closely resemble the word witch, and there very well may at one time have been a gravestone with this inscription, I did find a photo of the gravestone just inside of the fence that was taken not that long ago. The gravestone does have the word Wittich on it, but it appears to simply have been the last name of a woman named Anna and her 2 children, a son and a daughter. Legend makes it sound like it's some decrepit old obscure stone with creepy carved inscriptions. It's a very nice normal stone as well. You would think that if the townspeople hated her enough to string her up from a tree and believed that she was involved in black magic in their church and that she had a baby with the devil, she wouldn't have such a respectful looking gravesite. That's just my speculation. Now, I did read that the word Wittich, I think in German.
It's a very common German last name.
So this is what I'm talking about. There's all these stories that don't mention all these other factual things that go along with it. Wittich, it looks like witch, so people took it and just ran with it. That's the witch's tomb. But I think these were German settlers, and it's very obviously the people's last name that's on it.
Paul Wittich was an astronomer.
There you go.
Christopher Wittich was a theologian.
Yeah, it's not uncommon.
A German shot putter named Inez Wittich.
You can make it sound bad, but then if you throw in the facts that go along with each story, it's like, well, I don't know.
Also, it sounds like Quidditch, which
It
makes me
does.
happy.
Quidditch. Anyway.
Although, that does add a witch connotation to it.
Kind of does, doesn't it?
You're a wizard. You're a hazard, Harry. There is another thing that leads us to believe that there is likely not much going on at this church. The fact that the locals seem to have zero belief in it.
At all. None. They completely discredit the entire thing. And they are very annoyed with this whole legend.
And these are people who spend time here. Caretakers, visitors of family, and so on. There seem to be no locals who will report that they feel there is anything paranormal going on with this area. There could be a couple different reasons for this. Number 1. It doesn't happen. They've never experienced this, ever. Numero 2. Locals have reported that many of the historical facts regarding the church, cemetery, and overall settlement of Stull are wrongly reported in these legends. The fact that the stable boy was reported to have killed the mayor of the town in the barn is one. Locals say that there has never been a mayor at all in this town, period. Who makes the decisions?
I think there was like 30 people living there. They probably handled it.
Is there a council?
No. Why would there be a council if there has to be a mayor if there's a council?
Are they all the council?
Yeah. They just did things together. Probably. Like reasonable folk.
The town was always too small to have elected a council. Also, there are some stories that say this barn in which the mayor was murdered was later converted into the church. And they can show that this is not true as well. There is a record of the church being constructed from limestone and not from a barn at all. There is also a rumor that the town was once named Skull, as we said before.
How dramatic is that?
Why are you just making things up?
I heard that it was once named Skull. You know how stories get out of hand.
Well, I heard that Stull, Kansas actually used to be Skull, Georgia, and the devil went down. And then after he was embarrassed from losing a fiddle war
with Johnny,
they moved the whole town in shame.
Yep.
Guess how they moved it?
How?
A flock of seagulls.
They just picked the whole thing up.
Oh, it seems that that's completely untrue as well. There is a record of the first postmaster being named Sylvester Stull.
Alone.
And
it wasn't Stull.
I'm just going to carry on.
Sylvester Stull.
It would be more reasonable to believe that the town was named after him. And there is also a record that before the town was named Stull, it was named Deer Creek. Never Skull. Stop trying to make Skull happen. It's never gonna happen. The fact that there are a lot of things that seem to have been embellished is not a strong enough word.
Flat out made up.
And this makes us think that more of these stories were likely also embellished.
You You liars. I was trying to be nice at the time.
Oh.
You know what's going to happen? People are going to write us mean emails because they've been there and they've had these experiences, and we are being kind of naysayers, and they're going to be like, you go to school and we will go spend the night. But I want the cops on my side. Before this happens, Stull cops, we are with you.
County deputies.
Let us sleep there on the ground one night.
Let us prove this for you.
And I bet we come back just fine. I mean, no stranger than we are right now.
Either way, there will be snacks. And you can come have some.
Yeah, just come along. Just hang out with us. We're nice. We back the blue.
And the olive. Wear your olive pants.
Yep. Mount me hat.
Oh,
yep.
If it make you feel better about it, don't call it a Mount me hat, you asshole.
I have to.
Oh. Anyway, the locals may just discredit the legend because people keep coming into their little town and tearing it up, which would get really annoying, which is actually something that a lot of people can relate to right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Stop tearing up the towns.
So these stories have been passed down and kept going for many, many years, and the area is pretty much well established in the realm of most haunted places in America because it's on lots and lots of lists out there on the interwebs. Throughout its weird history and eyewitness accounts of strange goings-on, the stories have never stopped. They have stood the test of time, which is a big one here at Bigfoot for Breakfast and why we really decided to do an entire episode about it. However, while we love a good story and we believe in a lot of questionable things, we also believe in being respectful and courteous. Apparently, the local people in Stull, Kansas completely abhor the idea that the cemetery is haunted and or inhabited by the devil. And really, we can see why. Apparently, people from all over flock to this cemetery here and there, entering it at night, which is illegal, leaving lots of trash behind. Not only that, some groups who have come in have knocked over and destroyed headstones there. At one time, there was a headstone that had been embedded into a tree, and it sounds like it was really pretty cool. But someone stole it. Just stole it, the whole stone, which is kind of really stupid and super disrespectful. So now there's barbed wire around the church, and the sheriff's office keeps a close eye on the place, which probably would never have been necessary had people been cool.
Be cool, folks. The town cemetery gets lots, and we mean lots, of unwanted visitors to the area who simply wish to gawk around and see what they can see. While we have been known to do our share of traveling for the simple purpose of gawking and exploring, we do believe that it is super important not to disturb or disrupt anything while you're doing it. Leave no trace. Pick up your shit.
Pick up your shit.
Leave a place exactly the same when you leave it as when you came, if not better. Improve the space around you, but don't invite the devil. If you're in the business of checking things out for yourself, which is awesome, just always remember to respect the heritage and the land of others. And if it's private property that you're looking to enter, ask for permission. The worst they can do is say no. And then you don't.
You go away.
Which completely goes against our entire philosophy of if they tell you to do it, you fucking don't. And if they tell you to not to, you fucking do.
Yeah, but that's different.
You just fucking don't.
You don't if they tell you to not to, and it's theirs, right?
Truth.
Okay, so we're going to finish that point with a quote from local Douglas County Sheriff's Office Public Information Officer Steve Lewis from an interview with the University Daily Kansan. Quote, "It used to look a lot spookier than it does now. It had a stone structure adjacent to it, and it used to have some pine trees, but those pine trees died. When I used to patrol out there, I would stop people and they would tell me that they were just trying to see something scary. I told them that they were looking at the scariest thing they would see all night, and I charged them with a misdemeanor." End quote.
In the University Daily Kansan article, there's a brief description of what you can find now if you happen to brave the police tickets and visit the cemetery. It states, "Besides an American flag at the east end of the cemetery, there is a large bent tree that stands solitary around one of the curves in the looping gravel road around the cemetery's premises. Toward the northeast corner of the small plot of land, the only remnants of the roofless church are limestone bricks. Most of the attractions that once brought people to the cemetery have been removed, and the site is somewhat disappointing for a late day in October."
It looks like in the late 90s or early 2000s, the church actually caught on fire. It was made of limestone, so a lot of it was still standing for a few years. The roof was gone, and it sounds like it was just 4 stone walls left. Supposedly, when it would rain, the inside of the church would not get wet. No rain would fall inside the church walls.
So the rain drips down my walls.
Yeah, walls.
Yeah, walls. I don't know where you were going with that. I read a few different stories as to how the church came to be demolished. A few sources will have you believe that it just happened. The property owners had not authorized the demolition of the site and do not know who had done it. Who done it? It said that no one heard a thing the night that it fell.
See, even this, I have a hard time allowing it to feed into anything paranormal in my own mind. I had also read that the rubble from the demolition of the church remained on the ground. People were making comments on one site about how they wanted to go pick up a stone from the site and keep it, and I'm shaking my head at that. But was there more to this? Because on its face, this version of the demolition makes it sound to me like the wind likely blew just hard enough and just right to finish the building off.
And it was an old building.
It was dilapidated.
But was it a paranormal, supernatural wind? Or
a sudden wind?
A sudden wind.
I don't know. Anyway, not enough evidence.
I read in another source that the church had been in disrepair for a long time when it was finally just demolished in 2002. 2002. A storm right before that had sealed its fate when it blew in the entire west wall. At that point, the town already saw the historic church as a nuisance, bringing people from all over who were inconsiderate and rude. The man who owned the property on which the church sat saw it as a huge hazard, since unwanted visitors were still approaching it here and there. So he decided to tear it down. Apparently, it was dilapidated, and he just kind of walked up to it and pushed it over.
Now, I read that version, and then there were other stories that said it was bulldozed. So, honestly, there's just different versions of everything. So that's all we have for you this week. Once again, we really appreciate you stopping in to hear our latest weird story or unweird story. We're sorry to be party poopers this time.
Don't be mad.
We want to look into some of these places, and we're giving it a fair evaluation, right? We want to believe, too.
We want to believe.
But we don't believe the devil is in Stull. Sorry.
Prove it.
Bring him to me at daybreak. Don't do that.
Hope you step on a Lego.
I probably will. I do it a lot.
Bright side, have a ton of stuff in the lineup for you guys. And we're really excited to hopefully be getting back on track and bringing them regularly.
Don't forget to subscribe and leave a rating and a review. Contact us at bigfootforbreakfast@outlook.com on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or just leave us a voicemail at 641-812-2635 and we'll play it on our next episode. See you next week. And if you go down the staircase, don't forget to call us. You know what? Just call us before and stay on the phone while you enter the ground. Describe things on your way down, though.
And you know what? We'll come save you, but it's going to be a few hours. It's kind of a drive.
Like 7.
But we'll come.
That's not as bad as it could be. Adios.
Come at me, bro.